Okay, good evening, everyone. I am so excited to bring to you this panel tonight called Hearts and Minds, a panel of adults with DCC and their spouses as they discuss love, dating, marriage, and even more. So my name is Deona Kalala. I am the current chair of the community committee for the NODCC, and we've been doing these Connect and Reflect webinars over the past few months where we have different experts, researchers, and adults with DCC come out and talk about their either field of expertise or their life experiences. And so I am so excited tonight because we have three lovely couples where one adult has DCC and one adult doesn't have DCC, who are here tonight to talk to us about how they make their marriage work, about what dating has been like, about their experiences thus far. And it seemed really appropriate given that we're right after Valentine's Day to have this conversation. So I hope you guys are excited as I am to have this conversation tonight. So without further ado, I will let our panelists introduce themselves. So can you all just share your names and how long you've been married? And we can start with Tami and Kari.
Hi, I'm Tami Black. I'm the one with the DCC, CACC in particular, and we've been married as of July 2023 for 20 years.
Wow, congratulations, 20 years.
And I'm Kari Black, Tami's spouse.
Okay, thank you so much. All right, Wayne and Lindsay, you guys are up next.
Hi everyone, I'm Lindsay and my husband Wayne. We've been married since July 2020, 4 years.
And Lindsay, you are the one with DCC.
Yes.
I should have put that in there. Yeah.
I'm ACC. Partial ACC.
Okay. All right, and then Tom and Kathe, you guys are in separate rooms, but together lovingly.
Yeah. So Kathy's not feeling well, so she's got a temperature tonight. So I'm isolating myself away from her for the call. But my name's Tom G. Kathe is the one in the relationship with the complete agenesis of the Corpus Callosum. We have been married now for 15 and a half years.
Oh man, you guys are. I love that it's all marriage ranges, but I'm at 10 this year, so I'm just coming here for general marriage advice. Honestly, I appreciate it. Okay, perfect. So the very first question that I want to ask tonight is directed to the adult with DCC, because before we can get into marriage, we have to talk a little bit about dating, right? So, and this is a question for all of the adults with DCC. Can you just share a little bit about what your life was like pre-marriage, whether it was dating your spouse or anyone else, but what your dating life was like? Kathe, do you want to go first?
Sure. Sorry for my voice. Doesn't sound so pretty today. Tom and I actually started dating in middle school. So we've known each other a really long time. And it was back in the 90s. So there was a lot of rules, no cell phones. And we mostly, I think, saw each other at school, even though he was a grade ahead of me, and we would hang out a lot. In the summers, he would come, my family would go boating, and his house was conveniently on the way. And so we would pick him up and take him boating with us. He did start out dating a friend of mine who I waited very patiently for them to break up so I could snag him away. I always love to remind him of that I waited because I knew he was for me. It's funny as we got older, because we didn't stay dating in middle school. You break up, you date other people for a while. I like to say that we got all our bad relationships out of the way, and then we got back together, because we got back together in the early 2000s, 2005. But it was nice because he knew me before the disorder, because we didn't know when I was younger. And we found out we did a lot of things in common, which was nice. So like we would have 10-minute phone calls at night. That's how long my parents would let us talk for on the phone. And I found out that not only was I writing lists so that I could keep the conversation going, he was also writing lists of things to talk about. So Tom, I don't know if you want the spouse to add anything or.
If you want to, sure, Tom. Especially since you guys have been dating. You were dating for so long. So sure,
Yes.
go ahead. If you have anything to add.
A little different now with the, the introduction of technology and all the different mediums that people can have video chats and things like that. That didn't exist back in the day. It was just the one shared home phone. So we're all competing with siblings to have our time on the phone. But no, yeah, like Kathe said, we've known each other for a very, very long time and dated on and off throughout middle school and high school, and then kind of went our separate ways for a number of years, and then kind of regrouped and have been together ever since.
Oh, I love that. That's why I asked you guys to start first, because it's like literally the cutest stories.
Thanks. I will tell you too, Deona, that my favorite thing is we only got reconnected because I was at work one day and one of the TAs I worked with, we were talking about how men aren't gentlemen anymore. And I said, I used to date this guy and he would open the doors for me and hold door. And he was such a gentleman, always polite manners. And she said, well, who is it? And I said, you're not going to know who this is. She said, well, tell me anyway. And I said, his name's Magee. And she literally almost fell out of her chair. She said it was her nephew's roommate down in Florida.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it was the craziest thing how we reconnected. And it was all because I had a conversation with a coworker about men being gentlemen. And
oh, wow.
Yeah.
You made an impression as a high schooler.
He did.
Oh, that is so great. Well, thank you for sharing, Kathe.
Sure.
Tami, would you like to go next? What was dating like for you prior to your married life?
So sure. So just as a for context, I didn't discover I was had my ACC until 4 years or so into the marriage in 2007. So before, in dating life before that was the typical dating life of a Navy sailor and a college student. In particular, our dating life was we were matched by my college dorm's roommate. I had just gotten out of the Navy and was blasting Top Gun at 3 a.m. I got a big knock on the door, telling me to shut up because he had to be in the awake in 2 hours. We hit it off. So then he tried to match me with Kari. And of course, we didn't want to, we're stubborn and independent and alike in a lot of ways. So we didn't want to get set up by her cousin, and I didn't want to get set up by him. Anyway, long story short, a fun anecdote in the dating life. I was also at the time looking to purchase my first house. Her cousin invited her over to look at the house because I was having my friend, and he brought his girlfriend at the time to help see if this was going to be a good house to buy. And so she showed up late for that house. And so dating life is, I would just say, I wouldn't say it really had anything to do with DCC at first, just because I was many years away from knowing, but I was ADHD, so flighty that way. Do you have anything to add?
Oh, well, yeah, we were both pretty stubborn and didn't want to be set up. And when I was asked to go look at this person's house, I was like, why would I want to look at it? I don't even hardly know this person or care what house they buy. And when I got there, Tammy's mom was there and we introduced ourselves. Just like, oh, you should marry this girl.
She's Mexican, my mother is.
And I'm like, just met this person. Like, why would I marry this person? And lo and behold, yes, we did get married and lived in the house that was picked. So
wow, that's a pretty good recommendation.
Yeah. So
Good
later
house,
on
good spouse.
So, and when other people have questions, we can elaborate, but it was just a typical dating. We went on a lot of occasions. We both don't really like the bar scene. We like the outdoors. We live in the Pacific Northwest, so we did things like kayaking and some hiking and other trips, cross-country skiing trips. So we took advantage of those activities. Yeah. Oh, and just
Awesome.
and just for fun, she's a Scandinavian, and there's stereotypically stoic, and I am from the Latin culture, so I'm not stoic. Talk with my hands and very you know very different. So that's been fun.
Yeah, I love that mixing of cultures. That's beautiful. Okay, Lindsay, would you like to go next?
Sure. We met in September 2016. We met over online dating, christianmingle.com. But since day one, Wayne's been so aware of my needs and wants and still is. He really is a true gentleman. He paid for and still pays for dinner and open stores and taking care of me all the time. I always feel safe with Wayne, and it's never a dull moment with him. And we still go on weekly dates, which is really fun.
Oh yeah, that's the key to a happy marriage, right? Those date nights. Okay, great. So we're gonna make a quick jump from dating all the way to having kids because Tom and Kathe, I think you guys are the only couple here that has children, and I'm telling you, the big audience for this call is going to be parents that are like, how do I handle this dating stuff for my child with DCC or my teen with DCC? So can we just start there? And can you guys answer what advice would you give to parents or parents that have teenagers or even adults with DCC that are still at home to help them navigate that dating world?
Maybe I'll start out, and Kathe can jump in. But I think what we're seeing as our children are getting older. We have a 10 and a 13-year-old. One is neurotypical. The youngest one has complete agenesis of the corpus callosum as well. So she's basically the mini me for Kathe.
Yeah.
And I think having a lot of patience, obviously. There's a lot of, I think, guidance and advice that we can give on reading social situations. And I think that's for, neurotypical or not, with, maybe just misunderstanding certain situations, tone of voice, facial expression, and just helping people think through the process and work out their own conclusions. But then again, through that, I think, kind of open dialogue and open communication, it helps to reinforce the actual situation and what was potentially really going on versus how it might have been interpreted. I guess, Kathe, is there any more you'd like to add?
Sure. Well, first of all, I like to tell Lillian that whoever she decides to date has to be approved by her father because Tom was the only guy my dad ever liked. And I did date a few other guys. Back then in the 90s, dating again was like on the phone or you saw them at school. So that was my excitement. I come from a very Catholic family. I didn't go out to dinners and things with people. But for our daughter, so we do have to think about this for her going through it. I know for myself, I'm very worried about her being taken advantage of. Like Tom said, the social stuff is huge. And I have one example I know is I went to a friend's party when this was much later. This was actually even in my early 20s. And I liked this one guy. We were chatting and he gave me his phone number, but he just said it. He didn't write it down. We didn't have cell phones, he just said it. Mm-hmm. But I memorized it very quickly because that's what I do. And I called him the next day and his response was, "Oh, I didn't know you were going to call." And it took me a while to realize that he didn't really want to give me his phone number. He was just being nice, but I didn't catch that. So there are certain things that like we're trying to teach Lillian socially so that she reads cues and knows when she shouldn't continue to interact with someone. And I know for myself too, I was one of those kids that when I liked someone, I would obsess. And honestly, our 10-year-old's doing that now. There's no other boy but Wayne. This boy, Wayne, she's been obsessed with for years. He's the only one for her. She tried to sneak a secret admirer note in his bell locker yesterday and everything.
Oh my goodness.
But,
well, they might be married, you know, 20 years,
I know, right?
20 years
well,
from
he
now,
is very nice.
But...
He is a gentleman, so he is a nice one. But when dating, a lot of these guys, I constantly was worried about what are they doing? Who are they with? I'm constantly trying to get a hold of them and like panicking and worrying. I realized right away with Tom, when we got back together after college and things, one night I was chatting with him on the phone, and maybe it was like the next day, and I hadn't heard from him. And in my brain, I went, it's okay. He's probably at work, you know, doing whatever. He'll call me later. And then it clicked to me that this was the first guy that I was not paranoid or panicked about what was he doing every single second, who was he with. And that's when I knew he was the one I needed to be with. He calmed my brain, is what I like to say.
So it's on the one hand, you know, the vice is obviously reading the social cues. And how are you guys teaching that? Like via role play, or like what do you guys do?
There's a lot of talking through conversation. We just started this year having her meet once a week with a social worker to go over social situations, also to reinforce it as someone else other than her father and I, because she would have issues come up at school just with like friends that are girls, you know, and you just kind of have to start small, and we always want to build trust so that when she has an issue, she knows she can come to me immediately or her father immediately and talk about it. So we always know who she's talking to, who she likes, what she needs help with.
Awesome. And then I guess the other big thing is, you know, when you find that one, right, advise your kids like that one is going to be the one that helps you feel calm, helps you feel safe, helps you feel loved. I heard that from everybody across the board. So, well, thank you so much for the parents' advice. You know, we just had to hit that at the top because I know everybody wants to know. So let's go over to Wayne and Lindsay to dig into married life a little bit. Are there any stories or experiences that you can share that would help folks understand what it's like to be married and in a relationship while dealing with DCC?
I guess I can start with this. For me, in our dating, exactly, I caught on to like her not keeping up. I mean, being slow with conversation, and also like, and when there's more a lot of people in the room, sometimes I felt like she would lose track of the conversation, or so I was able to catch that pretty soon, and be able to help guide her in conversation, make sure she gets in the context and stuff like that. So I was able to catch up on that soon, and just was able to kind of help facilitate, like we're making sure she got the context when it came to conversation. So in our marriage, like definitely, I would try and make sure she has a complete understanding about the context of what's going on, or even myself when it comes to situations, about making sure she has a complete picture of what I'm trying to say or communicate. So definitely, I mean, she's really taught me a lot as far as like slowing down. I mean, my work I do is pretty fast paced. So, but when I come home, I just tend to like I've learned to slow down and just like make sure she gets a full picture of what's going on.
Yeah. So how does that work when you're having an argument? You know, like how does that?
Space is a big thing when it comes to arguments. Space is a big thing, and then comes
out. Okay, yeah.
What just happened,
Yeah.
and just need to like figure out in my head, and then I go and talk to Wade about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and besides being a part of, when also in parties or just in parties I'm thinking of, he really helps me to include in me into the conversation, which I really appreciate, because I'm just rewinding, going back to my childhood around like the family dinners. I was so lost, or I couldn't like keep up with the conversation. When I want to like say something, they're on to the next topic of conversation. So it's been wonderful having Lane helping me and just guiding me.
That's so nice to think about, just being on different wavelengths, right? When you're at work and it's fast paced, go, go, go. But then when you come at home, you just, I think we all need to do that, right? But like really be in that peace and that zen. And I also love, just that, having that guide. You've got someone with you all the time for all the parties, which is amazing. My husband and I, we have like secret gestures to tell each other when it's time to go, right? So
Code word on what we want to leave, need to leave.
Okay, thank you so much for sharing that. Let's go to Tami and Kari. Can you talk a little bit about how having a partner with DCC has impacted your relationship dynamics and communication?
I'll pass it on to Kari. Do you want to start or answer that question from the spouse of perspective?
Sure. So we didn't actually know for 7 years or 8 years about the condition. So when we were dating and things would come up, Tammy would often start to rage and kind of go off the rails on things. And I was like, this is kind of odd, it didn't really make sense. And having come from a family that didn't communicate a lot, but didn't share their feelings, to see all of the feelings come out at once, I was usually kind of scared. But then at the same time, it didn't necessarily feel like they were directed at me. So then when it would calm down, we'd kind of talk about it, and I was like, that was kind of odd, and then it wasn't until a huge blow up in public came about, and we ended up at a clinic, get a brain scan and everything, and found everything out, and then everything evolved from there. And Tammy's folks were like, oh, well, that just makes a lot more sense now, and that explains a lot of things from childhood. And for me, it's been learning how to communicate. So listening to Wayne and Tom, you sound very calm and, are able to think through it. And it's taken me a long time to get there, because I was still like, this is really confusing. I don't understand where it's coming from.
Yeah.
But I think in the end, it's made us both become better communicators. Tammy says she's been on the couch forever, meeting with people and
Psychologist
psychologist couch, meeting with people and talking about feelings. And that's been pretty new for me. But that's really what has saved us, is being able to talk about things, and when things aren't going so well, just kind of step back and be like, you seem like you're getting a little angry again, or you're kind of not talking at all. Let's see what's going on. And that's not something I would have necessarily done with other relationships, So it's kind of opened it. It's more raw, I think, and you're kind of forced to have to look at everything, which I think more people should do, and don't necessarily do it. But I think that's been helpful for us.
To add to that, so one of the impacts is, instead of going in the stock market, we've been enriching the mental health industry. But that aside, it was good to discover ADHD, and then eventually the ultimate cause. And then it was actually through maybe our second conference, I don't think it was the first, talking with Dr. Paul. And actually because when we discovered I had ACC, it was through a public event that and that was very public. And Dr. Paul helped us through that situation. But years later, they were starting to look at mindfulness, but before mindfulness was a word, dialectic behavioral training. It just so happened that the person who invented that therapy worked at the University of Washington, and long story short, it was Kari and I really think that that kind of training, the mindfulness training, allowed us to understand and love ourselves and be able to communicate that way, and also to cues, because I still don't do cues all that well, but I do them a lot better. So really, by the mindfulness kind of kicking in and saying, well, what is their perspective if something, and then it also physically, like learning that I do not so well when I'm lacking protein, or when, another way to say it is when I get hangry, a little bit of protein solves
Yeah.
that problem.
Yeah. Oh man, I mean, therapy is such an important part of all marriages, right? And it's so helpful, especially when dealing with communication issues too. So and I do want to come back to Tom and Kathe with that same question too, because communication. Like before I got married, we asked a whole bunch of people, what do I need to know about married life? And they said communication. So, and I know I didn't have originally this question for you guys, but can you just talk a little bit also about how DCC has impacted your communication, or how you're dealing with conflict resolution and things like that in your marriage?
Sure. So I guess maybe I'll start out, and then Kathe can add more. But I think the open dialogue is definitely, I'd say, something unique in our relationship as far as other relationships that I've had with other people. Talking more, and I guess just clarifying maybe your perception of the moment. I know there were times when she and I were first together, and I would have a long day at work, and I would come home at the end of the day, and I would just be exhausted and just mentally drained. I worked in IT, and my brain was just done, and I was tired. And when I walked through the door, she saw that I wasn't smiling, I wasn't happy, and initially she perceived that as me being mad at her and me being upset with her. And again, we talked through that, and she was able to understand eventually that it's just me being tired at the end of the day. So now, if that happens now, that's normally what she would expect, is that I'm just tired from work, but she'll still ask me, are you tired? Did you have a rough day? So I think, the open dialogue, the open communication is good. I think as far as conflict, also, knowing when to stop talking. I think, before you put your foot in your mouth and you say something you're going to regret. I think that's also very important.
I see lots of nodding heads, everybody.
And you need time to cool off, take time to cool off. And again, I think words can be hurtful, which is why sometimes it's best to just take some time to cool down, collect your thoughts, and come back at another point and talk it through.
Anything you want to add to that, Kathe?
Sure. Yeah, with the communication too, it was one of the biggest things at the beginning of our relationship. Before we started like officially dating as boyfriend and girlfriend, I brought up the disorder, to which he said to me, I already know, because somebody else had already spilled the beans to him that I had the disorder, and there he was already dating me anyway, but he had all that experience with me from middle school and high school, so I wasn't different. And then when we were dating, we were living together, and we talked about the next step. And I said, well, if we're going to do the next step, I was like, we have to talk more and know that we're going to absolutely have to communicate so much more, because I will misunderstand you and it is going to affect us. And we just have to know that we have to, like he said, talk through it, take a minute, process what's going on. And I think it's definitely helped us a lot, but we had to set those boundaries almost right away of like, okay, we've got to be open. Even when you don't feel like you want to be, you got to say something. So
Yeah. I love that. It sounds like, DCC has given you all the license to over communicate and to overshare just to make sure that you're on the same page. So that's probably a great strategy for people when they're dating or married and affected by the condition. I do, and this wasn't one of the questions that I had, but I do want to go to Wayne and Lindsay because I think you guys are the only couple where one of you knew and the other one didn't know, and you had to tell the other person. So I'm curious, Wayne or Lindsay, if you could talk about like what was that disclosure conversation like?
Why are you laughing? Trying to repeat myself, but we started dating in 2016, and then in 2018 is when I found out, and we went to that or my sister and I went to the conference in 2018. But going back to Wayne and I, it was a lot. It was a whole lot of just after coming back from that conference, it was so much. I learned so many questions answered, but so many questions that I still have. And so telling Wade all that, I'm sure you were overwhelmed. I was overwhelmed with everything. But we've been navigating it together since day one, sort of. Well, since 2018. Yeah, and then go ahead.
Yeah, for me, I mean, it was definitely, I mean, it kind of gave a label to what I already picked up on from the beginning. Obviously, I just thought it was her being different. But when now having a label, I guess I went into like, when she told me, I kind of went into like resource mode. So I was like, a lot of videos. I found Kathe's videos. I found everything online and kind of get an understanding of it. So and how I can help. So really just trying to educate myself on how I can be a better partner and I'm certainly a better husband to her. So I mean, I guess for me, I found in all my research like communication and make sure social cues and everything like that. So definitely making sure I was doing my part to be a better helper. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, so Tami and Kari, there's a Tom here and I keep wanting to say it. Tami and Kari, can you guys talk a little bit about challenges, right? Like we want marriage to always be roses, but there are challenges and DCC in particular causes challenges, right? So can you guys talk about some challenges that you might have affected related to DCC and how you overcame it?
I got to take myself off. I mean, do you want to start or?
You can chime in there.
So some challenges that so let me think here. Give me a second. So really just the challenges were acceptance of the DCC issues when we were first doing things. So I come from a family of 4. I have a younger sister and my mom and dad, and she comes from a family of thousands. Give you an idea, my first or second Christmas we spent together, she has 4 or 5 uncles and aunts total, and they each have a minimum of 2 or 3 kids. So and they celebrate Christmas on the 24th, as some Norwegians, Scandinavians do. So I went to this party where she had us take a gift or two, and literally the Christmas tree was probably 12 to 13 feet tall, and the and around that tree was about 3 feet height of gifts, and just a ton of people, all related somehow, and all close. And I had the business executive travel kind where I would spend Christmases lovingly, but with a family of 4 in hotel rooms in Europe or Asia or wherever I happened to spend it. So one of the big difficulties is when I discovered my DCC, people had known me a little bit, but for some reason, at the time we discovered it, it was a high stress time. I'd been out unemployed and for a little while and so things just got out of hand. And that's when we discovered the rage issues. And so I lost the trust of family, and building it back over the years was difficult because she is very close with her family, but all of a sudden they wouldn't necessarily trust leaving her nieces and nephews with just the two of us. So one of the things that were challenging was getting people to trust me more after they saw my actions. It's not there yet, but it's a lot further along the way, right? So big issue was just actions that from my that were I don't want to say caused by, but that I
Associated with, right? For
yeah,
sure.
associated with, correct. That's a good term. Because not, and they weren't excusable, or, I can't say, well, I have ACC, so blah, blah, blah. I tried that. Counselor did not like. But at any rate, so one of the challenges is trust. And to this day, and not only with my relationship with Kari, but with my parents. My sister grew up essentially not really being raised because they had all the effort of trying to raise me, and that was at a time without knowing what was behind it. So that's a big one. Do you have any
Well, I
other?
think once we found out Tami's family, it was that aha moment, and for them it was like, oh, great, but for my family it was like, oh, what did you get into over there? Because
Yeah.
we don't really know about this, and they've had a harder time wanting to accept it because, like I said, our family didn't share much and didn't share feelings. So to see someone actively showing their feelings all the time, it was pretty scary for them. And they just wanted to make sure I was safe and everything. But I could always tell, even as scary as it got, that there was a good-hearted person in there. It wasn't like this evil person that was coming out. It was like a good-hearted person, and you just had to get past the explosion, and then they'd kind of come back to life. So for me, I trusted what I was doing, and I initially, when we were dating, I could see, some of like, she wouldn't look straight at you when you were talking, and she kind of tilt her head. So I felt like there was something a little off, but didn't know what. And so when we found out, I was like, okay, well, that makes more sense. But my family hasn't had to deal with a lot of people who were different or on the spectrum. So they weren't very forgiving. My sister now has a young son who's 5, who's on the spectrum of some sort and explodes and all sorts of things. He hasn't been diagnosed with anything yet, but I think that's been actually good for them to see, because she's had to figure out how to deal with it. And she knows that he's a loving, good kid. And so for me, I kind of like that, because they can see from another perspective, someone born into the family who is sharing their feelings too, and it's okay,
So just
that is, oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, just kind of to summarize. So in terms of like labels and things like that, maybe you have to think of the context. And Kari and I have understood that the context for us is a little bit different. There's, I was born with this, so I can have flashcards, I can work on it. It's something that I can't that I can always be better, but there's always the potential. And so the difficulty has we've been mitigated really by learning to, as has already been suggested, respecting other space when that isn't as possible because things just got too escalated too fast. Then the thing is to eventually talk it out with counseling or with each other, but to trust that we trust one another, and we trust the intentions, and we understand them, which a lot of families won't necessarily do that, and they'll just like saying, oh, I'm done with this. But we both
Yeah.
have figured out that that we complement each other's weaknesses and strengths, and
Yeah.
it's taken a long time of life to you know to keep working on it, I guess. So that the challenges is in the case of my actions, my is volatility, and so never pleasant. I don't, but we've through the help of the NODCC and Mike and her counselors have figured out how to manage that and allow that to change and grow over time.
And I think it
Yeah.
can be,
No, and
oh, sorry. It can be lonely too, because we have friends who don't want to hang out with us sometimes if they've seen that side, and they're like, okay, I don't want to deal with that. Especially friends that I had for a long time. And at some point you can't explain things to everyone. You just have to kind of move on. So we found groups of friends who we can hang out with and have a good time. So it can be a little sad that way, but we found other ways, to just kind of move on and do what we can.
yeah, I'm so thankful that you guys brought up that discussion though, because I've heard quite a few times recently about how when adults get into their 20s or early 30s, adults with DCC, sometimes there is a lot of anger and rage, and it feels very sudden for people. And so, exploring that, and like you said, Kari, kind of knowing the kind heart that's behind that emotion, and both of you guys working together to build the trust, repair the trust, that is major. So thank you so much for sharing. And I want to switch to Tom and Kathe again to talk about another common marriage dynamic, which is raising kids and parenting and family dynamics. Can you, and you've got the double whammy of having DCC and a child with DCC, so you're getting it from all the angles, right? Can you talk a little bit about how DCC has affected your family dynamics and parenting styles?
I think early on, based on how Kathe was raised, she didn't find out that she had the disorder until she was 18. So she was pushed to basically keep up with her siblings, all neurotypical, and mainstream classes, no additional extra help. There was some tutoring over the years, but nothing really above and beyond that. I think, I lost my thought here.
It's been, some of the things that are very typical for parenting, but then some things that are a little different, maybe.
Yeah, I think with us, we weren't sure if we were going to tell, friends and family immediately about the disorder with our youngest daughter, because we didn't want them to treat her any differently. So we were hoping that, by us kind of just telling a close few family members that, they would kind of keep pushing our youngest daughter to keep up with everybody, the same standards that everybody else has, not using it as an excuse and things like that. So I think, we kind of gone back and forth with that, and until the point where we thought that maybe, with the public education system, that she needed some help, where we started to see some signs of struggle, and at that point, setting up some special accommodations for maybe some testing, maybe like a quiet situation to go take a test in where she's not distracted by other people in the classroom. Small things like that so far have seemed to be sufficient. Whether that changes over time, if you need more accommodations, I guess we'll adjust and adapt at that time. But we're really trying to push her as much as we can without it really making it unnecessary. And we want to support her and not make her struggle. Obviously, we're here to make sure that she's successful. And I think based off of with her siblings. That's kind of what we're going through, but also obviously making sure that our youngest has the support when she needs it.
Anything you want to add to that, Kathe?
I do. Yeah. So, and with Tom talking about that, it's nice. He kind of has that one side of it. And then with some of the things he talked about, like getting her accommodations for taking tests out of the classroom, it was helpful for us that I went through those same struggles. So we knew what to look for, what to do for her, how something helped me, could it help her also? And it has. And then I know a big thing that I specifically try to do when I was growing up, since we didn't know I had the disorder till I was 19, none of us knew, that I spent a lot of family dinners behind my bedroom door crying. Because I come from a family of 6 kids, and my oldest brother and my younger brother are very sarcastic personalities, especially my older brother. I don't get sarcasm. I mean, I think at this point I get some of it because I'm so used to Tom, but I still don't think it's funny, which drives him crazy. But at least I'm like, I know you're being sarcastic right now. But when I was younger, I didn't realize that. And at dinner, I think my brother would pick on me a lot or would just be joking. But I misunderstood it, took it really offensive. I would just storm off crying, slam my bedroom door, stay in there. And then I always wondered, why is no one coming to check on me or like ask me if I'm okay? It took me up to the point where I was making these videos for YouTube, that I had an aha moment of, oh my gosh, I was misunderstanding those situations. And maybe they weren't coming because I was the one acting strange, not him. So we have situations like that arise between our 2 kids where our youngest with the disorder will have an interaction with our 13-year-old and ends up crying and storming off and very upset. And instead of just letting it go, I go to her and we talk through it. And I say, well, I think you misunderstood this situation. Your sister did not mean it the way you're taking it. And I need you to just recognize that. So again, it's back to that communication. I just want, and my whole goal is just to make her struggle less than I did socially. But that's the one thing. Tom is the one with the most amount of patience. He does all the patience and handles both of us very well. But knowing those moments of, oh my gosh, I think she misunderstood this and I'm going to go talk to her because I know how she feels, but we need to address it so that she knows next time, maybe don't make such a big scene. We try to do that a lot.
Oh, that is really helpful advice to kind of, especially dealing with sibling situations, to diffuse the situation, really use that as a real life opportunity to explain, like, here's where that breakdown in communication came from.
Well, and I've talked to other parents in the past, Deona, where they come to me saying my kid has these behavioral issues, and sometimes they're not behaving that way to be bad. It's because they're not understanding the situation that's happening.
Yeah. And I mean, you've got great insight to really understand like how that could have gone awry, but for all other parents, they really have got to take that step back to say, let me analyze that and think of, where it could have gone off the rails. So that is very, very helpful advice. If folks on the call have any questions, you can put them in the chat, and I'm just letting you know now so you have time to do it while I ask a question for all of the non-DCC spouses. So we started with the DCC spouses. So now I'm curious to hear from the non-DCC spouses, because Kathe talked a little bit about how Tom has all the patience and that obviously requires a lot, right? So can you talk a little bit about how you balance your own needs while dealing with, the needs of your partner related to DCC? Like, how are you taking care of yourself and making sure that your interests are heard and all of that as well? And that's any of you can pop in.
Maybe I'll start out. I think one thing that's been important for us for many years is us having kind of our own alone time. So Kathe likes watching TV, and that's how she kind of relaxes. At the end of the day, I can't stand watching television shows. So for me, I would rather come in my office and either play a video game or watch a YouTube video and learn how to do something like build a building of some sort, things like that, where I feel like it's a better use of my time, but it relaxes me at the same point. So I think, having things that we can enjoy separately has been, I think, important for both of us. So that kind of gives us also a little bit probably of time away from each other. But really, I think, making sure that we, like you said, it's important to have interests that you have that are for you to give you that enjoyment in life. And again, us having our separate things that we do at the end of the day has been helpful over the years.
Yeah. Kari, Wayne, anything to add?
I definitely agree with Tom. Definitely having things that you do separately to kind of recharge you, to kind of be able to go back and be able to continue to serve, and obviously take care of yourself, health. I mean, as far as that, I was trying to get a lot of rest, and for me, I mean, I like walking, exercising, running, so try and keep that in the schedule. That's one thing that I try and do in order to kind of just be able to recharge and be ready to help. Yeah.
We're kind of the same. Tammy's actually really good about making sure I do things for myself, because she knows she can be difficult sometimes and I can get tired, but we both, I think, try to let each other have their space and time and activities that they like to do. And if she sees I haven't been doing anything for a while, I like to paint and stuff. She's like, why haven't you done that? Get a hold of your friends, get together, go out to your studio. I want to make sure you're getting some time for yourself. And I don't think, I mean, whether it's a DCC or not, I think everyone needs that to recharge and have some time away and stuff. So she's actually been very supportive of that. And, I'll walk with the dog, or like to watch different shows as well. And I think all of that kind of helps to remind myself that I'm a person too, and that, we all need our
time. Yes.
Time and space is what I'm hearing across the board.
One thing I've been hearing that is we're very disparate couples here, very different backgrounds, but we all married a patient partner who was able to get through the isms and understand us. But it seems like a quality seems to be patience through the good and the crazy.
Oh my goodness. Tami, you took away my last question. I guess you've already answered it. My last question was for the spouse with DCC. Just curious to know, and because you all started your relationship and your love journey before you knew, right? And then you found out you had DCC. So I was curious to know, in what ways has DCC changed your understanding or perception of love and commitment? So that was such a beautiful answer, Tami. I don't know, I'll throw it out to all of you guys. Tami, if there's anything else that comes to mind, feel free to share. But Kathe or Lindsay, feel free to add in anything about love and commitment that has sort of evolved over the years with your understanding of your DCC as well.
I'll share. First things first, my parents have been great role models. They're celebrating their 43rd anniversary this time of the year. So that's been wonderful to see. Yeah, and also besides my parents, seeing other couples, so I've been able to grasp the concept of true love, what true love looks like.
I love that. And Kathe, you can have the final word for tonight.
Oh my gosh. I don't know. I don't know what else to add other, because I had kind of talked about it before. Our big thing was the communication, because like we knew each other when we were little kids. And then in our, college gap is when I found out about the disorder, and then we got back together. So I don't know. I just know that he works for me with all the patients, and he teaches me a lot of things about myself, which is wonderful, with all the communication and the talking through things. And he just helps me learn more about myself. Our youngest daughter is going through some things right now with headaches, which is something I really struggled with for a long time. And then my husband one day said, you don't have to worry about everybody else, and it's okay to say no sometimes. And it took him telling me that, and my headaches decreased drastically.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So he's just always been there for me, always trying his best, even when I irritate him and drive him crazy, he hangs in there. So
Well, I'll say this must be I'll encourage if I ever meet a teenager or a young adult with DCC that's trying to find the right spouse for them, I will tell them to come back and watch this video, because you guys have cracked the code. So much to learn from your beautiful relationships, and I really just appreciate all 6 of you for taking some time this evening, right after Valentine's Day, to talk about love, dating, and marriage. And I hope you guys have enjoyed this conversation as much as I did. For those of you who are watching, we will be posting this on YouTube as well, so we'll send out around the link soon. But thank you guys so much for joining us. Thank you for everyone who attended, and I hope you all have a great evening.
Thank you.
Thank
It was
you.
a pleasure.
Awesome.